What's up guys, Andrew Baena here, and on today's video we are going to be taking a look at the Parallax plugin by Neural DSP. For this demo I am of course using my trusty Dingwall NG2 5-string tuned to drop A. The tone that you're about to hear is just the DI from this bass going directly into the plugin, no farther post-processing, so I'm going to show you guys a mix with the bass and a little bit of drums behind it, and then we'll get into the plugin and how it works after that. So here's how it sounds in a full mix. Alright, so now that I've shown you guys what it sounds like in more of like a mix setting, even though it was just drums and bass, just to give you more context as to what it would sound like if it was a full mix, we're going to go in and look at the plugin and how it affects the DI signal so you guys can get a better look at all the features that this plugin can do. So first and foremost, I'm going to show you guys what the DI sounds like without the effect applied so you can hear where we're coming from. So that's of course just my Dingwall and drop A. Like I said, it's going into a Steinberg UR44 interface, just the DI tone, and then once I apply the effect, which is these tone settings as you can see here, feel free to copy them, although you're going to copy them whether I say that or not. This is how it sounds once the Parallax VST is applied to the DI signal as such. So now basically I'm just going to go over the features of this plugin and play around with the settings so you guys can see how those different parameters affect the tone. So this is kind of the tone that I ended up with. I called it Baena bass because I'm super original, as you guys know. So basically what I have going on here is there's a low compression setting which does exactly what it sounds like. It compresses the lows. So I have the compression set to 1, which is the highest compression setting possible. You have a low pass, so you can select like where the frequency range should be. I had it around 100 hertz. And then of course the low level, just meaning how loud is the low. And again, you can just dial this up or down to increase or decrease that. I think it had it around like 6-ish. You can also, by the way, drag the node here and just move it like that if you want, and that affects the low pass and low level without having to necessarily twist some dials if you're more into that. Next up we have the mid distortion settings, which again are pretty self-explanatory. Basically this is for the mid section of your bass tone, how much drive you want on that mid range and how loud you want it to be. So again, I have the mid drive set to a little over half and the mid level is a little bit lower but still pretty decently present. Next up is the high distortion, which is of course the same thing as the mid distortion except in the highs. And this one also has a high pass parameter, but it has the other two same settings, the high drive and the high level. So once again, I have the high drive set a little bit above half, a little bit higher than the mids because I like to have that kind of like trebly clicky bass sound in my tone personally. And then of course there's the equalizer setting, which is a low pass, high pass, and then some EQ controls for 250 hertz, 500 hertz, 1000 hertz, and 1500 hertz. Up at the top, there's also an input level, so you can increase the volume of the input if your DI is weak or something like that. You can also set the noise gate. I just left it at the default, which is -80. You can put the mode to stereo or mono and the oversampling to high or normal. I don't really notice it too big of a difference when I switch between these, but I just leave it at high just in case anyways. And then of course the output to simply increase or decrease the volume of the output. So now I'm just going to play you guys that bass clip once again, but play around with the settings so you can kind of hear how it sounds depending on what you are doing. Alright, so next up we're going to talk about the cabinet simulation settings. So these are pretty in-depth as well. So pretty much it gives you all of these options, which are the same on both sides. So if you only want to have one microphone, you can do that by just turning one of them off. You can blend different mics. There's a bunch included, which are the internal mics. Dynamic 57, 906, 421, 184, 180, and 121, whatever all those numbers mean. I'm not a microphone guy, so I'm not really sure, but I just pick whichever one sounds good. And then of course, if you already have your own custom impulse responses, you can load them as well, same as any other neural DSP plugin. And of course, you can blend two different mics. So in this case, I had a dynamic 57 and a dynamic 106. You can also change the position of the mics on either side. The distance from the speaker cone. You can change the level, which again is self-explanatory. You can pan it if you want as well, and you can invert the phase. So all the settings in the cabinet section are pretty self-explanatory as well, I feel. And then the last thing that I want to talk about is of course the built-in presets. So if you are someone who doesn't really know what you're doing, but you just want a good sounding bass tone right off the gate, there are a ton of presets that are included. The default one is just a completely straight, clean signal, as you would expect. Then there's a bunch of artist settings from Dave Otero. There's some from Nolly from Periphery, or aka not Periphery, or whatever his situation is these days. Jacob Umansky from Intervals, and so on and so forth. And then there's also some factory settings, which are just Neural DSP's own settings that they have included. So lots of good ones in there. And then any tone that you make will go under the user section. As you can see, I have my Baena bass settings there. So we could take a listen to Nolly's preset, for example. And let's take a listen to Jacob Umansky's tones as well. And last but not least, we'll look at Dave Otero's presets. So as you can see, there are a ton of options with this plugin. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory, but in case you don't want to go diving into all the settings, you could find a pretty good preset very, very easily. And it also goes to show how different this thing can actually sound depending on which preset you pick or how you choose to shape your tone. So that's pretty much it for this video. Hopefully you found it useful and insightful. I want to give a big shout out and thank you to the guys over at Neural DSP for taking care of me and sending me this plugin. It will definitely be my go-to bass plugin from now on. If you want to learn more about Neural DSP or the Parallax plugin, you can find a link to that in the description below. Other than that, there's a few other links such as my merch store, my links to Apple Music, Spotify, and all that. So yeah, just take a look through all the links in the description if you so please. It would mean a lot to me and help me out a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, I hope you enjoy this video. Leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.